Finally, it is time to add last details to this build. Although the town hall and the town square are almost complete, there are still a couple of minor details that I would like to add or fix. One of those are the interiors of the clock tower, or rather the lack of those interiors entirely, because there isn't anything inside the small room. And in the lower floors, I am still missing some floor tiles. I tried to count the amount that I needed before ordering them last time, but apparently I made some mistakes. On top of those interior details, there is also one detail that is visible on the outside of the building. It is on the town square. And that is the colors of these planter boxes. As you can see, there is dark gray in the middle, but light gray at the top and at the bottom. I think these would look better if this would be entirely dark gray. Now the reason why those top and bottom parts are light gray actually goes way back when I was still designing the town square. Even though I always had the idea of adding that light gray cobblestone effect on top of the dark gray plates, I somehow forgot that when I was doing some initial tests. Here you can see some older footage. I used light gray in the initial tests because at the time that appeared to be the contrasting color when compared to the base plate. But of course, once the light gray cobblestone was added, it would have been the dark gray that would have been the proper contrasting color. But as I already had those plates at the bottom of these planters, and I even had half of those tiles that go on top of the planters already in light gray. So I thought that perhaps if the bricks in the planter boxes would be dark gray, it would create enough contrast. But in the end, I think that the end result was not that good. So as I need to order some parts anyways, this would be a good spot to fix those planter boxes too. Now, the parts for the planter boxes and the floor tiling, those I had a pretty clear idea what I needed. But the same was not true for the clock tower. But I had some sort of an idea how that would look. I would need lots of different size gears and somehow connect them to create a clock mechanism. It is pretty hard to come up with something like that without test building. And I didn't actually have any Technic parts in my inventory. But I had managed to pick something up during previous Lego events, and I tried to build something out of those. First, I just decided to take the walls off from the clock tower as the room is quite small. Now I could build on this floor section more easily. And this is what I came up with. I didn't want to rebuild the actual clock tower wall to insert the gears there, so I built this dark gray base for the gears. I know it kind of looks like a concrete slab that shouldn't be there, but, well, I think this will get the job done. I just need to order some parts, like the floor tiling, in correct colors. And here you can see the clock mechanism placed inside the tower. There is even room for 1 or 2 minifigures in front of the mechanism. And at this point, I knew exactly what parts I would need to complete the build. So it was time to put the order in and wait a bit. Within a couple of weeks, the parts had arrived. And here they are. Plates for the bottom of the planter boxes, tiles that go on top of the planter boxes, some additional parts for the clock tower, and finally the remaining floor tiles. And I decided to start from the floor tiling. One of the sections is already complete, and I have 2 more to finish. This edge on the first floor, and this room in the second floor. And that was pretty easy task to complete. All the rooms are now completely tiled. This time I wanted to make sure that I wouldn't run out of tiles, so there were some extra ones included in my order. And this is how the clock mechanism looks when it's built out of correctly colored pieces. It still looks like an awkward concrete slab, but it sort of gets hidden inside the clock tower. Like this. Not much room for anything else, but then again, I don't think that the clock tower needs any other details than this. And finally, it was time to fix the planter boxes, though that would require some work because those were quite part intensive. But I was quite sure that it was going to be an improvement, and therefore it was worth taking all these parts out. Now, Mr. Human Helper just has to put them back in. And here you can see now that sides are complete and the soil is back in there. The rounded 1x2s are used to create pretty uneven grid to make these plants look more natural. Well, I'm not sure if that actually makes any difference, but the end result looks quite good in my opinion. And it is definitely an improvement when you compare it to the original one. That light gray, dark gray sandwich looks quite distracting when I have this new one to compare. Now I just have to copy the new design for the other one too. And now that this planter box is also fixed, I can consider the town square and the town hall complete. And as those were the final builds for my layout, now the entire layout is also complete. Now, as I don't have any more room to expand my Lego town, does this mean that this is the end? Well, I wouldn't say so. Even though the entire space on top of the IKEA Kellogg shelf is now filled with various modular buildings, I do have some other options too when placing modular buildings. For example, I have already placed this Sanctum Sanctorum building inside one of these glass cabinets of the IKEA Kellogg shelf. Most of the modular buildings could fit here if I take some of the transformers out. And of course, I already have some other Lego sets here too. So I could add, for example, the Jazz Club or the new Tudor Corner to my collection and place those inside the glass cabinets. Of course, those wouldn't be connected to the rest of the town. At least not here. I could display those connected when I go to Lego events. So that could be one way to keep expanding the Lego town. Of course, I couldn't fit bigger buildings to those glass cabinets, like the Natural History Museum. For that, I would need another kind of a plan. One idea that I have been toying with is adding a wall-mounted shelf on top of the buildings there. That way I could have a whole nother row of modular buildings there. And that way I could also add the bigger buildings there that don't fit inside the glass cabinets. And one final idea to add something to the Lego town would be adding buildings inside these corners. There isn't room for a whole building. There is only half a base plate of depth there. But you could add some sort of facade there. One on this side would also be visible from the small gap of the assembly square. While those facades might work well for my current layout and the space limitations that I have, those facades might look a bit off when I go to Lego events and I don't have a wall behind my Lego town. And what if I add additional buildings to the sides of my current Lego town while I am at Lego events? I would have to build some facades behind those additional buildings too, but then again I wouldn't have the option to display those while the collection is at home. So perhaps the facades are not the correct way to proceed here. I think that I will start with the easiest one. Just keep adding some additional buildings to those glass cabinets. And then display those connected to the main town while I am at Lego events. But before all that, I think that I could still add a couple of videos about my current layout. I think this current extended town hall should be added to the collection so far series, because the change is quite significant. And I think it would be a good idea to feature this fantastic building in a single video. But even before that, I have promised to make a tutorial on how to build these trees. And that will be the topic of the next video. If you want to get the notification as soon as that video is up, you should consider hitting that subscribe button down there. You can expect that next video ASAP, but remember, when a Sloth says that, it means as slowly as possible. Bye bye.